A thread by Carlos Osuita. It really seems as though old Hegel, in the guise of the world spirit, were directing history from the grave, and with the greatest conscientiousness causing everything to be reenacted twice over, once as grand tragedy, and the second time as rotten farce. Frederick Engels. Once again, leftists are using violence to try and force their will on the sane. And once again, they're failing. The U.S. Marshals Service is laughing at how easy this is compared to the Battle of Oxford, September 30th, 1962 to October 1st, 1962. James Meredith, center, enrolled in the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, and Democrats tried to stop him. Meredith was protected by deputy U.S. Marshals for his entire time at the university. Quote, deputy marshals provided Meredith with 24-hour protection, going everywhere he went on campus, enduring the same taunts and jibes, the same heckling, the same bombardment of cherry bombs, water balloons, and trash. That's from usmarshals.gov. Sounds kind of familiar. September 30th, quote, the student protesters formed into angry mobs, but they tailed off as the evening wore on. However, taking up ranks alongside of them and even replacing them were rioters and assorted troublemakers from as far away as California. We were successful early on, but as the night wore on, there were fewer and fewer students and more people from other places, said Duncan Gray, an Episcopal bishop who confronted the mobs with calls for peace only to be beaten for his efforts by reactionary hoodlums. Angry forces of students and bystanders confronted the deputies, viewing them as unwelcome agents of change. The crowd was not adequately restrained by state authorities, and a battle of bricks and bottles followed. Then the violence graduated to buckshot and tear gas. Many of the rioters gathered their stones and bricks from Shoemaker Hall, a nearby science building under construction. Ray Gunter, 23, an Oxford, Mississippi resident, climbed atop a pile of construction material with a friend. When the rowdy crowd turned toward them, they both ran for cover, but a bullet struck Gunter in the head. He died, and authorities never discovered who fired that shot. The confrontation between the mob and the deputies raged on. Stones were getting larger, and there were some broken concrete chunks, slightly smaller than a football, with wire handles attached, Staples said. This allowed the stronger athletes to throw them completely across the street, breaking anything or anybody they hit. Taunts became roars of disapproval as violence continued on the rise. Explosive Molotov cocktails were soon thrown into the mix as some of the rioters cranked their barbarism up a notch. Then, some of the deputies were hit with birdshot fired at them by snipers positioned behind a grove of bushes and trees out in front of the Lyceum. Former Southern Indiana deputy Gene Same was shot in the neck. The deputies were still restricted to shoot back, but an order finally came, allowing them to use tear gas on the offenders. This gained them a little space and a bit of a respite, but only for brief periods of time. Some rioters even commandeered a bulldozer and used it to try and ram the front of the Lyceum, and twice they attempted the same thing with a stolen campus fire truck. But the deputies subdued the vehicles with magnum rounds. The chaos continued. There was no end in sight until U.S. Army soldiers from the Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Company A, 503rd MP Battalion arrived just before daybreak. In a loud, audible voice, the unit's lieutenant ordered, "Load and lock and fire when fired upon," Staples said. In unison, the bolts of their M1 bayoneted carbines racked back and loaded with one loud, distinctive metallic sound so familiar to all firearms users. That seemed to me to be the decisive point of the struggle for control of Ole Miss. The terrorists also had deer rifles. A French photographer was killed. Quote, 79 of the 127 Marshals Service personnel were wounded, Turk said, and some very seriously. Visitors to the University of Mississippi campus can still see bullet marks on the Lyceum's columns to this day, a testament to the bravery and the professionalism of the deputy marshals called into action that long, lonely night in 1962. Why did it get out of control? Because President Kennedy micromanaged it. He prohibited the deputy marshals from using their firearms. So Kennedy finally had to call in the army and tell them to fire live rounds if necessary. Let's look at some videos. Things are not as they seem. Now, all these links are going to be in the description. Please take a look at them, but you can see these thumbnails for right now. Law enforcement, this is from Andy No. Law enforcement in downtown Portland have been under attack for hours at the federal courthouse by Antifa extremists. They hurl projectile weapons at police, and when officers respond, go on social media tagging politicians and lawyers, claiming police brutality. Guess what that is, referring to the video? Reconnaissance by incursion. The only way to learn about the enemy's capabilities is to goad him into showing his hand. Bait taken. What's this? From Andy No. The U.S. military is protecting the Portland federal courthouse under attack tonight by Antifa Black Bloc militants. They rushed out and made an arrest here. Antifa have been trying to set the building on fire for hours. Arresting a leader. The deputy marshals know exactly what they're doing. This is a cakewalk compared to the Battle of Oxford. Taking out the leaders makes the enemy totally disorganized. Don't believe the lies. BLM and Antifa are rigidly controlled from the top down. What's this? Sweet, sweet, devious sabotage, from Andy No. These are the fireworks Antifa are using to attack police and the public in Portland. Last night, one of their own comrades was injured by their explosive outside the federal courthouse. They rioted for hours and started a fire inside the courthouse. Little fella was given what he thought were tiny firecrackers. He lit a couple, and it turns out they were massive explosives in disguise. Poor fella. I hope his ears are okay. Here's the explosion he was expecting. A light and tiny crack. What he actually got was quite different. Here are the two explosions he got. A boom. Okay, this is the greatest thing ever. And then a boom. Okay, so now you see it. Today's leftists are not as smart as the leftists who attacked the deputy marshals at Ole Miss. Okay, that's the greatest photo ever. Calling in the army with live rounds would just get people killed. Donald Trump said that people need to see what Democrats are allowing to happen. Did you know this? Q13Fox.com is the chop here to stay. City adds concrete barriers. The city put up the concrete barriers in CHOP. Why not just arm the terrorists? Madness. The country needs to see it. One final point. Somebody sent me this. You must stop consuming this crap. This guy is fake. Okay, so I'm just going to go out on a limb here and tell everybody in my audience that that print's just too small for me to try to read. But Carlos tells us the guy is fake. It's not possible to cripple the U.S. military by taking out electrical substations with snipers. The military has its own backup systems. This guy says the Russians are one of the best military forces in the world at fighting in urban environments. This is laughable. Even I know this. Russians training at the level Russians have training at the level of the CHOP security forces. They can't even take on empty buildings. Now, there's a link in the description to a Chechnya terror attack, heavy fighting in Grozny. They're all blowing out each other's eardrums. Nobody warns anyone when firing an RPG. They burn each other's heads with muzzle blasts. The two morons on the right have actually bracketed the other guy's head with muzzle blasts. Bam. Look at that. Look at that. Okay, do you see what he's referring to? Muzzle blasts. Bam. There's a head. Okay, so bad training. Look how he has to run to protect his head. Watch. See? He's firing while holding his rifle on the top. They're buffoons. What the hell is this tactic called? The Russian urban combat experts copied it from this guy, and this is short enough that I can just show it to you. And this is the combat tactic. There it is. Okay. That fake insider thing was from 2015. This is 2020. In government, nothing is the same. Obama may as well have never been president. It was an 8-year hiatus from governing. No civil war, no insurrection. Tiny teams of highly trained professionals are at work. They've never been allowed to ply their arts before. Now they are. They go to work every day happy. This is the big one. And it's a flop for leftists. They're frozen in time. Trump revolutionized law enforcement and the armed forces. The past is not prologue, not for Trump.